Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Hope you're all doing very well this morning. Ollie targets a new number 9. Jadon Sancho price set. And a lot more around other things to discuss as well that I've not actually prepped. But there is a lot to talk about, so don't worry. I just haven't looked at my notes properly. Unprepped. But what I am prepped for is that we have got new transfer targets being looked at by Manchester United in the press this morning, and some quite significant updates from the CEO of Borussia Dortmund giving an insight into the summer ahead. And they're still playing Billy Big Bollocks, I reckon. They still think they're it. It's still about, oh, you know what? There's two options with Dortmund. We're either not for sale or they are for sale, but they're for sale at the price that we say and nothing else. Yeah, you're not in the Champions League anymore. You're, well, after tonight, I don't think you will be, and you're 5th in the Bundesliga. You know, you sell this dream like the Pied Piper with all these young players. Come and play for us, and we'll sell you a dream. And your dream's failing. You're taking them off a cliff because what you normally do at Dortmund is you normally buy players cheap and then sell them expensive, and on the pretense that, oh, you know, we're going to be really successful. And the reality is you're not going to be successful because you're not doing very well at the moment, are you? So we'll see what happens with that one. But let's start off with the number 9 target for Manchester United. We've got, well, we're going to be talking about Danny Ings, of course, but there is also Andrea Bellotti, remember? I mean, it feels wrong to be talking about Bellotti. I was trying to find this morning. I remember talking about Bellotti on this channel. God, must be 4 years ago, maybe even 5. A long time ago. So Bellotti's been linked to Manchester United. Dybala's been linked to Manchester United. Lautaro Martinez has been linked to United. And I think effectively what you've got happening here is United's search for a number 9 if Cavani goes. Now, interestingly, just before I came live, there was some story, I don't know where it was coming from, that the Uruguay coach was actually, as reportedly said, it would be better for Cavani and his career to stay in Europe for another year. Be better for his career to be playing in Europe. Now, if that is true, then maybe Cavani will stay. I think if Cavani stays in Europe, he'll stay at Man United. If he doesn't stay in Europe, then he won't stay at United, obviously, because Manchester's not in Europe. No, Manchester is in Europe. But he'll go back to Argentina, won't he? So there is still hope with Cavani. And I think that, as we were talking about on the show last night with Flex and KG, and as I said yesterday afternoon, keeping Cavani will mean that money will be spent elsewhere. So if you keep Cavani, that money will then go on the midfield and the defence and a right winger. If you don't keep Cavani, then that's when the danger is that we could go and do something what I think to be stupid, which is spend everything on Haaland or a Harry Kane or something like that. The other option is that if Cavani does go, there are other options out there. Now, Danny Ings to Manchester United, what's your initial reaction to that? There's a story from the Telegraph saying that Manchester United inquired about Danny Ings 18 months ago, well, just over a year ago, to be honest with you. When we got Agallo, United made an inquiry about Danny Ings and Southampton gave them short thrift. However, Danny Ings has only got 1 year left on his contract. So Southampton either need to get him to sign a new contract or they've got to let him go this summer. And as we know, 1 year left on your contract means you don't go full price. Pogba's got 1 year left on his contract. Lingard's got 1 year left on his contract. Danny Ings is 29 in the summer as well. So, I mean, a lot of people are saying yes, a lot of people are saying no. Ings equals injury prone. I actually think that Danny Ings would be a good signing for United. As much as I'm going to say straight away, I don't see this happening, but it does tick a lot of boxes. He's going to be 29, so look, the future's not Danny Ings, but the future's Mason Greenwood. And what Manchester United need is a Premier League or a proven striker who would come into Manchester United, be competitive for that number 9 shirt, but not necessarily dominate it. And I think Danny Ings would do that. You bring Danny Ings into Manchester United, Premier League proven striker, would compete with a Greenwood and a Martial, but wouldn't necessarily own that shirt week in, week out like Harry Kane or an Erling Haaland would. And I think it might be a good deal for United because with 1 year left on his deal, and if he was refusing to sign a new deal, you're talking anywhere between 30 and 40 million pounds at max, which for a striker of that quality is not a bad deal. Look, I'd like Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin's going to cost you 90 million. I would like Harry Kane. He's going to cost you 150 million. There are other strikers I would like, but when you're talking about Daka or Andre Silva from Eintracht Frankfurt, or some of these other people like Isaac and people like that, they're all around 30-40 million pounds, but are they going to prove themselves to be Premier League proven? Danny Ings is. And I think he's a striker that would, like I say, fit into the club quite well. It'd be a big step for him to prove himself, which I think he would want in relation to England opportunities. But other than that, I think also the competition would be good there for Mason Greenwood and for Anthony Martial if he stays. So United Comp says Calvert-Lewin 90 million, laughing his head. Well, mate, I'm being real. That's real talk. I mean, whether Calvert-Lewin's worth 90 million, that's what Everton will ask for, because they are the same as Leicester. I mean, you can do your little smiley faces. We paid £80 million for Harry Maguire, and I don't care how good Harry Maguire is, and I actually think Harry Maguire's a decent player. He's not £80 million. So Everton are in a very similar situation to Leicester, where they would want top dollar. Setting for a Liverpool castaway, says Andre. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. If you want to wake up in the bad mood, that's up to you, Andre. But I mean, you can take your negativity and go swim with it, because you can't live your life like that. I wanted I would have took Amre Chan last summer. Ex-Liverpool player, more of an ex-Liverpool player than Danny Ings. I would have took him. Things move on. Beggars can't be choosers. I mean, look, I mean, people want to buy Rafinha and they want Kelvin Phillips. They play for Leeds. Danny Ings really didn't do anything for Liverpool, so it's not like it's buying Michael Owen. I think that's such a short-sighted view to have when we are a team that's nowhere near winning titles, and you're going to go, right, we're not going to take that player that never really did anything for Liverpool, never will play for Liverpool unless they buy him again. We're not going to have him because he used to play for Liverpool. Come on, grow up. You've got to look at things a little bit different to that, I think, and I certainly would in them situations. Guys, don't be so dumb. Liverpool reject, then made a good at Southampton. He was when you don't include the top scorer in the league last year. Look, I don't think United will go for Danny Ings, but I think in that situation, as the Telegraph are saying, that we inquired about him last January. 1 year left on his contract, he may well be an option. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, just out of Italy, 2 options coming out of Italy from Tuttosport, Dybala and Andrea Bellotti. Now, Bellotti, I've got to be honest, I mean, he still scores goals. He's a little bit younger at 27. Also another player with 1 year left on his contract. I wouldn't pay massive attention to Bellotti. To be honest with you, I'm very surprised that we're even linked to him. But he has got 1 year left on his contract. And I don't know whether United are boxing a little bit clever here, but I think Bellotti compared to Danny Ings would be a really big risk. I mean, he's 27 now. He was sort of being looked at 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, he's still scoring goals in Serie A, but he's not really a player that you think about in relation to top striker targets. And I think in relation to somebody like that, then maybe you would be looking more at an Andre Silva, maybe an Isaac, maybe a Daka more than a Bellotti, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't see... I could see Bellotti coming to Manchester United and being, and flopping really. But look, as Akshat says, he could be really underrated, and with 1 year left on his contract, he might be a decent signing. We should have to wait and see if anything develops around that. I mean, obviously it's Italian reports at the moment, and as we know with Italian reports, they can be very hit and miss. They have mentioned Lautaro Martinez as well. Dybala has also been mentioned. I mean, Dybala gets linked to United all the time. He didn't want to come to United, what was it, nearly 2 years ago. Obviously, things can change. You can't hold that against the player. I like Dybala. I was talking about him last night on the Champions League watch-alongs, and I do like Dybala, but I also feel that with Dybala, the inconsistency wouldn't suit Manchester United. And what I mean by that is, I'm not sure Pep Guardiola would sign Dybala. I'm not sure that Jurgen Klopp would sign Dybala. And I think Man United need to try and buy players that Pep and Klopp go, ooh, that's a good player. And I think risky player. I mean, look, Dybala's a great player, but he sort of reminds me of James Rodriguez. Yeah, on his day, absolutely superb, but does he have that day consistently enough? I mean, he does play for Juventus, but does he play every game for Juventus? If you look at the last 3 or 4 years, he's in and out of the team. I don't think that, and for how much you would pay, basically with Dybala, you would pay ridiculous wages for a player that I don't think provides the consistency. I do really like Dybala, I've always said I do, but I don't think he's the right fit for United, and I think it could be a very expensive mistake, and we've made a lot of those recently, so it wouldn't be for me. Can you say happy birthday to my girlfriend Laura, says Michael Peralta. Happy birthday to Laura from Michael, that's very, very nice. Happy birthday, Laura. And we spoke about Dybala. Lautaro Martinez, Manchester United. I mean, look, but the thing about Lautaro Martinez, you're basically talking about Calvert-Lewin prices again. You're talking 80 million, and I don't think for a striker United need to be going for that sort of player. for many reasons. For one, it will use up a lot of our transfer budget. And the second reason is that by buying a player like that, you basically are dropping in a striker that's going to be like, look, I play every week. What does that then do for someone like Mason Greenwood? I like the idea of a Danny Ings because I think he would come in hungry, but he wouldn't necessarily be expecting to start every week. You'd have some good competition there. Thomas Russell says, would we still be interested in Ronaldo now? But mate, what I would say, I'm just going to talk about what Dortmund have said in a moment, but what I would say about this transfer window is that, you know, the swap deal of Ronaldo for Pogba is now impossible, apparently. The swap deal of Pogba for Varane is now impossible, apparently. I don't think anything's off the table at the moment because the transfer window hasn't even opened and it won't open for another 6 weeks. So anything is possible. And the reality is, you know, United can pretend all they like. They don't know what's happening this summer. They've got no idea what's happening. They are desperately trying to put a plan together that they are not in control of. They don't know what Pogba wants to do. They don't know what Cavani wants to do. They don't know what Jesse Lingard wants to do. And they don't know what they want to do because of all those things. And they don't know what to do with people like Pereira, Delot. They don't, the goalkeeping situation. They don't know what they're doing. And, you know, maybe that's the song that gets sung about our board. You know, you don't know what you're doing. But I don't even mean it in a bad way. They don't know what's going to happen in this summer transfer window. So to write off a Ronaldo-Pogba swap as unlikely as it is would be, I would suggest, a little bit silly to do that at the moment. The same with the Varane for Pogba thing. We can all second guess and we can all predict what's going to happen, and we can all say, oh, this isn't going to happen, Mark, that's not going to happen. But the reality is, how do you know nothing's going to happen when the club itself doesn't know what's going to happen? So we have to wait and see. Klopp wouldn't buy Dybala and sold Ings. Yeah, we shouldn't go for Dybala, but Ings is a good idea, says Andre. Andre, you're boring me. I've given you over a minute already. I'd suggest stop doing your super chats because you're just trying to elongate a conversation that's actually been answered. So thanks for that super chat. Mark, when is Football Manager, and can you unban me on Twitch? I'm not talking about Football Manager, Dwen. This is a morning show. It's not questions with Goldbridge. You ask me about Grand Theft Auto? What did I have for my breakfast? We're talking about transfers. I'm not talking about fucking Twitch. I'd like Ings but would prefer Daka or Silva because of injury record, age and resale value. If Cavani stays, we should prioritise right winger and push Greenwood, says Fazia. And I can see PSG winning Champions League and us winning Europa. Thoughts on PSG versus United in the Super Cup? Long way to go for that, Rahul. Very impressive PSG last night. Let me talk to you about the CEO of Dortmund. Now, this is quite interesting. This is an interview with the BBC from the CEO of Dortmund. He's basically come out and said that that they have this business model, that there's two options really. When people want to buy Dortmund players, they're either for sale or they're not for sale. And if they are for sale, they're for sale at the price they set, not anything else. So it's Billy Big Bollocks time from Dortmund again. And we've experienced this. And look, there is no doubting that I want Dortmund to win tonight. I'm not really a Dortmund lover. I think it's a bit of a cliche to love Dortmund, the yellow kit, oh, they've got a great team. But I will be supporting Dortmund tonight. But I've got to say there's a little bit of satisfaction if Dortmund don't get into the Champions League this year, because I just think that the way they've owned United, and look, I would love to have the structure that Dortmund have got at Manchester United. This is 100% bitterness and jealousy, and I'll own up to it. They took Haaland when we should have got him. They took Bellingham when we should have got him, and they kept Sancho when we should have got him. So I am bitter and jealous about the way Dortmund are, and I'll put my hands up, and I think sometimes you've got to do that. But there will be a sense of satisfaction if they don't end up in the Champions League next year and they have to sell players, because I think that the way they act is they act like they're something that I don't really think that they are. You never win titles, you never win tournaments, and basically you buy young players cheap and then sell them for high prices, which is fine. But it won't work for you this summer, will it? Because you're going to have players that are very unhappy if you're not in the Champions League. Now, the Times, I think it was the Times or the Telegraph, I can't remember which one it was. Jadon Sancho. No, it wasn't. It was CC Ekner, who is a good journalist, actually. He was saying about Sancho that, and he writes for numerous outlets, including German outlets, and he was saying that the reasonable price for Jadon Sancho this summer is £86 million. Now, £86 million for Jadon Sancho sounds more reasonable, doesn't it? Because last year it was 120, but it was 120 million euros, which is about 104 million pounds. So the reduction in the fee is 18 million. I don't think that's enough. I don't think 18 million reduction over a year is enough when you're not in the Champions League and COVID's been going on for a year. So you can shove your 18 million pound reduction. I think United. I think Jadon Sancho, 75 million, 80 million, do the deal. That's absolutely fine. 86 million, I don't know what they're smoking. I know people say, well, you're only talking about £6 million there, but it's quite significant. I don't think that's a big enough drop. So Man United at the moment with Sancho, as I've said, everyone I've spoken to, everything in the public is that United know that a deal with Sancho could happen very quickly because of the work they put in last summer, but at the moment they're very standoffish and not even sure if they'll go back in for him. So, I mean, don't rule out a deal for Sancho. I said it yesterday. If you said to me you can have Varane, Basuma and Sancho, I would take that summer. They're not the players I necessarily want. I'd rather have Declan Rice than Basuma, but I'd be very happy with Basuma. Sancho and Varane, yes. And look, I've not bought a striker, so I'd be very, very happy with that. We also say on this day all the time about Pogba, so why do we go all out to keep him? Hoping to keep him on his day more than half a season, says Steve Lebo. And Diaz was third choice. I mean, let me just say about that. The reason Man United fans want to keep Paul Pogba is, yes, I agree with you about on his days, this, that and the other. But is that not evidence of how far we've fallen as a club? That we want to keep Paul Pogba even though we know his consistency levels over the last 4 years haven't been where we want them to be. Because the alternative, Steve, of saying, well, we should get rid of Pogba because we always talk about him on his day and he's not always on his day. You remove Pogba from that team, you're playing with McTominay and Fred. So, I'm sorry, but yeah, I'd love to see a more consistent Paul Pogba at United and a more committed Paul Pogba to Manchester United by signing a new contract. But I would take an inconsistent Paul Pogba over most of that United squad every day of the week, because if he leaves, even a Paul Pogba that doesn't play well every game of the season is way better than some of the crap we've got in that squad. Diaz was third choice and he's been a revelation, but Ollie can't use Donny van der Beek because he was not his first choice. It just proves he's got no tactics, as Nick. And Pogba needs to stay, says Amal. I've just lost my... Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Jadon Sancho. I do like the player, of course I do. And I welcome him at Manchester United. I still think he'd be a very good signing. I just think the issue with Sancho is that so many people put so much effort into that signing last summer and were so excited about it that I don't think the excitement will be replicated this summer until he's holding up a United shirt. I don't think people will just go all in on the deal. And also, it does feel that United might be prioritising other positions. And you've got to ask the question about Jadon Sancho as well. What's happening with Amad Diallo? Like, what was the point in spending over £45 million on Diallo and Pellistri collectively to not use them? One's on loan in Spain and the other one sat on his arse on the bench. So we'll see what happens. Johnny Nellis, another one saying Danny Ings is injury prone. Well, that's definitely something to look at. I haven't even gone that deep. I don't think United will sign Ings. That's not the point. The point is it's in the news this morning and we're addressing the news. I don't think that I don't think Manchester United will sign Ings, to be fair with you. Pogba stay please, says Abdul. I think Pogba's got to stay in the right circumstances. I mean, I don't want Pogba to stay if he's running his contract down. I think that would be the worst situation. I'd rather lose him for 30 million this summer than have another year of him and go for free, because people go, well, no, it's got to be worth having Pogba for 1 year is better than Pogba for no years, but you don't realise what will happen in the final year. He'll definitely miss about 3 months injured because he'll be protecting himself. What will happen is no international tournament next summer. World Cup coming up at the end of the year. We'll hit January. He'll start talking to the clubs he wants to go to, and then he'll have an injury for 3 months until the end of the season, so that he doesn't mess himself up. Because that's what I would do, and that's nothing to do with, and that's nothing against Pogba, and it's nothing against. I think what would happen if Pogba runs his contract down is that all the moaning we've ever done about Raiola would have to stop, because if I'm the agent of Paul Pogba and he's got 1 year left on his contract, I've got every right to be publicly talking about my player. I wouldn't like it, but I genuinely wouldn't have a massive problem with it. I wouldn't have a problem with Paul Pogba in the last 3 months of next season if he's leaving in the summer. Oh, I've got a hamstring or anything. You've got to protect yourself. That's the stupidity of letting a contract run down. We can't put ourselves in that situation, but I fear it might happen, because I think United are going to pretend that they've got a chance of getting him in a new contract in his final year, which, if we couldn't keep Herrera in his final year, so we're definitely not be able to keep him. What do you think about Marcos Llorente, Goldbridge? Good player, but I don't think we'll be looking at Atletico Madrid players this summer, to be honest with you. I think that the midfield solutions exist within the Premier League. You've got the more expensive option in Declan Rice. And you've got the cheaper option, but not necessarily the worst option in a Basuma. I mean, there's more stuff this morning about Lingard and Declan Rice, and effectively it's the same old. West Ham want Jesse Lingard, but Jesse Lingard knows he's got other options. Manchester United are interested in Declan Rice. But all I can ever say to you about Declan Rice is what I keep saying, and people hate to hear this. You know, there are people out there who profess to be experts, who seem to know everything but don't get much right. And the reality with Declan Rice is that he could come to Manchester United, but he wants to go to Chelsea. People cannot get their head around this. And sometimes people can't get their head around this because they're so bloody stubborn that Manchester United's the be-all and end-all. And so to us it is. But we lost Cristiano Ronaldo, who had won the Ballon d'Or, was getting to Champions League finals and winning Premier Leagues. He was on top of the world with Manchester United, but his dream was to play for Real Madrid, and we couldn't get in the way of that. It was so frustrating. He wanted to go to Real Madrid. That was his dream, and United lost him. Some players don't have the dream of playing for Manchester United. Declan Rice wants to play for Chelsea. That's who he wants to play for. It doesn't mean it will happen, but that's what United are up against. Now, if Chelsea say no and West Ham want to sell, we can get him, and I think he could be United's captain. I think he could be an absolute United great. The opportunity, the door. There is a position at United that's not been open for a very long time that is just there for somebody good to grab. Centre defensive midfielder of Manchester United, the orchestrator. That position is there. Fred and McTominay, bloody hell, neither of them can do it. Matic is too old. That position is wide open, and Declan Rice is one of the best options to play it. But you've got to overcome some quite big mountains. One, West Ham might be in the Champions League next year. If they're in the Champions League, I don't think he'll leave. Two, even if we express an interest and Chelsea go back in, we won't get him. I thought we didn't keep Herrera because we didn't want to, and not that we couldn't, says Chubba. No, basically under Herrera, they let his contract run down and thought that they'd be able to just get him on the cheap, and then PSG came in and gave him better money than United were offering, and they messed it up. I mean, that comment there is the biggest load of nonsense I've heard today. I mean, why would United let Ander Herrera go because they didn't want him anymore? He was 28 at the time. He was worth 25 million. Oh, we don't want you anymore. Walk out the door. Yet we keep people like Phil Jones. Like, he had a value. He never should have been allowed to go. I mean, he's not really played that much for PSG, but Ander Herrera would have been a huge player for us over the last 2 years. I mean, you've got McTominay and Fred and Matic playing for most of this season, and Ander Herrera sat on the bench at PSG. He would have been a starter for United easily. But we messed it up. He was, whatever you think about Herrera, I was a big fan. I know some people weren't, but to say that we didn't want him anymore, who lets a player of that age and that importance walk out the club for nothing? You basically forget Ander Herrera and imagine it's a big truck with £25 million worth of cash just driving out of Man United and Ed Woodward and co are waving it off. I mean, you'd never do that. It was just stupid. Absolutely stupid. What about Saul or Milinkovic-Savic or maybe Dele Alli? God, you went from one to bad to another there. Dele Alli at United? God, no. No, never in a million years. No. The Times are talking about Max Aarons. Now, Man United have been linked to Max Aarons in the past. £30 million transfer price by Norwich on him. Norwich are coming back in the Premier League. Max Aarons is not going to come to Man United. If we've got £30 million to spend on a right back, we're a bunch of prats. We haven't got, I don't think we've got more than 100 million, and that might be optimistic. If we've got 100 million pounds to spend this summer, and that might be optimistic, spending 30 million pounds of it, a third of it, on a right back would be up there with idiotic. It would be. I'm not saying that we don't need a right back to challenge Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think we do, but spending 30 million pounds on a backup right back when we haven't got a midfield, we need a centre back, and we haven't really got any wingers who can create, would be stupid. Why are you buying two? Why? Tellez was a good signing, but at the end of the day, we didn't even buy a winger or a centre back or a midfielder, and we got a backup left back. It would not be good enough as far as I'm concerned to do that. Why would Aarons go somewhere to be backup when he could just start for Newcastle, says even? Well, also, he's going to be back in the Premier League playing football next year anyway, so why would he do that? I don't know why he would look at doing that. It doesn't make much sense to me. Rice is not Lampard. Well, he plays in a different situation. We need to sell 8 players to buy top quality, says Johnny. And Man United need Ollie Watkins, says Martin Albert. Well, he won't leave Villa after 1 year. I think what people need to do, and I don't know how many people realise this, but it's one of the frustrations I know many of you have. You'll watch TV, you'll watch one of these scripted mainstream media shows on the BBC or Sky or BT, and you'll get somebody sat down there who in your eyes is a legend of the club because they were a legend of the club, and then they'll say, go and buy Fofana, he's the player to go and get. And you'll go, hold on a minute, oh no, I realise this is not an open debate, this is just they can speak whatever they want. So you think you sat there at home and you're going, go and buy Fofana, right? He only went to Leicester 6 months ago. They spent 30 million on him. They're not going to sell him in his first year at the club. And if they do, they're going to want 80, 90 million. Hello, that you may as well just say, go and bake a cooked English breakfast and put it on the pitch. Because it's as stupid. There are levels to like what you've got to say. And I think that there are certain players that we can go for, but there are certain players that you may as well say, go and buy Messi to play centre-back. Go and buy Fofana. I mean, it's just not... I think some people like get paid a lot of money to give an opinion, and it's got absolutely no basis at all. It's basically just nonsense. And I know if I came out, and not on the morning show, because the morning show is about news, and there is a lot of nonsense in the morning show, because I'll tell you where it's come from. But if I sat there on an 8 o'clock show tonight and somebody goes, like Danish says, what's the 3 players you'd buy for United this summer? Well, I'd buy Van Dijk, I'd buy Fabinho, and as a good winger, I'd buy Salah. Next question. And people would go, look at this dickhead. And they cut it up and everything like that. Because it's not possible. It's stupid. But we get fed that stupidity. And what my point I'm coming to through here is, football has changed in the Premier League. I don't know how many people know this. Aston Villa are loaded. Everton are loaded. And Leicester are loaded. So when you say buy Ollie Watkins or Jack Grealish, you better have 80 million in your pocket. If you want to buy Calvert-Lewin, you better have 80 million in your pocket. If you want to buy a Fofana, you better have 80 million in your pocket. Because those clubs are not clubs that teams like Manchester United and Liverpool can go to now and say, that Watkins is a good player. Well done for getting him from the Championship and giving him a chance and making him a Premier League proven striker. We're now going to bully you and take him for 30 million. Pick the pips out of that. It's bad for United, it's bad for the big clubs, but for the smaller clubs, it's absolutely fantastic because they can still go and buy Ollie Watkins from Brentford and, give him a chance and turn him into a Premier League striker. But they can also say, up yours to any of the big clubs that come down and say, yeah, we'll take him off your hands. Yeah, you can pay us a bloody good price for it. Football's changed a lot. United can't pick up players from Villa and Leicester and Everton anymore without paying more than they pay for Jadon Sancho. And that's how the Premier League tax, whatever you want to call it, the Premier League tax has always been there for British players, but it's now there for all players because, Fofana's not English, is he? So it's there because clubs are run by very rich people now. And that doesn't mean that Everton are going to become the next Chelsea or Man City. I'm not talking about that level of wealth, but they are very wealthy, which is why Man United need to look more and more with their scouting systems into Europe, because the French league isn't like that, the Dutch league isn't like that, most of La Liga's not like that, Portugal's not like that. There's a lot of clubs in Europe that will, let's be honest with you, you want to pay £80 million for a Calvert-Lewin or a Fofana, because that's probably what Leicester and Everton would want. That £80 million in the French league would probably get you 3 players as good as those, but you've got to scout them and find them. And that's what Manchester United need to get better at doing. Shopping in the Premier League is going to blow your budgets. We saw that with Harry Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. £130 million on a centre-back and a right-back. Was that money well spent? Both good players, but their fees were very, very inflated. Imagine if you'd had that £130 million. How many years ago did we buy Harry Maguire? 3? Is it coming up for 2 or 3? The mind boggles. I think it's coming up for... It must be coming up for 3. If you had that £130 million 3 years ago and I said get a centre-back and a right-back, I guarantee you could give me £50 million back and get 2 good ones. Mark, I don't know what you see in Sancho, but every time I see him play, especially against the low block, he looks bang average. If we pay anything above 60 million, it'll buy and sing. How many players do you genuinely think are leaving the club, says Stockton? I don't make predictions on that because Man United are not very good at getting rid of players. Ollie's use of Donny van der Beek and Diallo will put off transfers, says Dutch Van der Lip. No, it won't do. It won't do. Footballers are arrogant, and I mean arrogant in a good way. I'm just going to summarise this. A footballer starts off being a footballer at 6 years of age. From being 6 years of age to being a professional footballer, they will have more fights and battles than you would believe. Through all the age groups, being rejected, getting through, having to fight with loads of other players to get in an academy, to then get in the under-18s, to then get in the first team, to then get your move. These players are egotistical because they have to be. They've got to back themselves. They've fought many battles. Do you think their agent's going to say, Man United want you, but look at what's happened with Van der Beek, and they go, well, I don't give a shit. That's Donny van der Beek. I'm Basuma. I'm going to get in the team, and that's what players do. It's the same with management. If Solskjaer got sacked tomorrow, no manager would go, I'm not taking the job. They'd go, I'll take that job. It's more attractive when other people have failed. Actually, if I was a professional footballer, there's a few jobs in the Premier League I'd quite fancy as a player. CDM at Man United, because that job, Man United, you could be the player that takes them to the next level, and you'll always be that player. Centre forward for Chelsea, they need a centre forward. You could be the striker that takes them to that next level. Man City haven't got any spaces, have they? Any position you like at Arsenal, actually don't go Arsenal, you'll ruin your career. But you know what? There are teams that are not quite at the top that you can see. Chelsea, Man United are good examples. CDM at Man United, striker at Chelsea. I'd go to those clubs. If I was one of the world's up and coming talents, I'd go to those clubs because I'd be like, wow, ego man. I can be the man that takes that club to the next level. So people will always want to come to Manchester United. And of course, money will dictate that. Man United will still... Manchester United pay the best wages. So money will always talk as well. Camavinga was mentioned yesterday, Raps. 100 million euro they were talking about. Please smash a like on the video, by the way. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's press conference is today at about 1:30, so we will be live for that. So make sure you tune in for that one. There's always got to be a bit of Arsenal slander. They could get knocked out tomorrow. Imagine that. Imagine if Arsenal get knocked out tomorrow. There's still 6 weeks of the bloody the season left, and you're in mid-table. They'll get through. Even I think Arsenal will get through tomorrow. I just dropped out and dropped back again there. Sorry. Reconnection is successful. There's 3 reasons why I think Sancho £86 million is too much. One reason is, and probably the biggest reason of all, is that if they're not in the Champions League, then that's a big loss for Dortmund financially, but also status-wise. That means in my mind, they've got to sell, and you've got to reduce the price. The second reason is you wanted €120 million last year. A year later, that's got to come down. His contracts come down a year, so that knocks off a bit as well. And then the third reason is COVID. COVID affects everybody. So there's three separate reasons why, if Dortmund wanted €120 million for Sancho last year, you've got to knock €20 million off because you're desperate because you're not in the Champions League next year. You've got to knock, I would say, another €10 million off because another year of his contract's gone. And I would say you've got another €10 million to come off because of COVID. So that's €40 million off €120 million is €80 million, which is about 75 million quid. I think £75 million is a good deal for Jadon Sancho. And I think if United go any more than that, then they're stupid. But they may not go in for him at all. I mean, you've got to say that. And that's how United need to look at it. That's how Manchester United need to look at it. There are 3 definite, distinctive reasons why his price has to come down. Last summer, I don't think he was worth €120 million either. So you could knock a little bit more off if you wanted to. But I think £75 million for Jadon Sancho would be exactly right. That is exactly the right fee. With how much he's got left on his contract. Of course, if Champions League football is secured for Dortmund, then maybe you add that bit more on. My ideal CDM, that other George, Declan Rice, Basuma, they would be the 2 I would be looking at the moment, definitely. United Comp says Zorc is a prat. He thinks Dortmund are a big club. Well, I hope they are a big club tonight. Bamford's contract runs out next year too, says Duncan. I mean, Bamford's a very interesting striker. Definitely. Definitely. Thoughts on United's apparent interest in purchasing... I'm not talking about that, Jordan. I mean, we spoke about it yesterday. He's talking about us buying Central Coast Mariners from Australia. I'm more interested in what Ed Woodward's going to get from Tesco as a meal deal today. I couldn't give a shit about buying some Australian football club. I've got no interest. With all due respect, most people in Australia support Manchester United or a Premier League club. And that's because their football is irrelevant. They're good at cricket. They're good at rugby. They're not very good at football. And how is this beneficial to buy a club in Australia? I mean, if United want to do it, crack on. But I've got no interest in it at all. It's not news. It's just, I don't know what it is. Bamford would miss the ball if it was already in the net, says Alex. I think he's quite good. I think he's quite good, to be fair. Dortmund would still beat United, says David. Yeah, but we're going to be in the Champions League next year. They're not. Oh, I don't like Dortmund. And it's totally jealousy. I've got no problem admitting it's totally jealousy with Dortmund. But I am supporting them tonight because I would love them to knock out Man City, who for me are now favourites for the Champions League, which means they've got the Premier League, the Champions League. They only need the FA Cup. And they've replicated our treble. I mean, are you not afraid by this? I am. I think this would be one of the worst things ever. And I tell you what, if Man City win the treble or the quadruple, I would be quiet if I was Ollie and the rest of United players. I don't want to see bloody Twitter or Instagram posts about great season, we go again next year if we get second place and win the Europa League. No. Second place in Europa League, just quickly hide them and go on holiday. I don't want to hear about it if Man City win the treble, because that would be... And I know second place and winning the Europa League would be good in relation to the last few years, but you go and hide under a rock if Man City win the treble, because that would be the big flag of Old Trafford saying we're happy with second place in the Europa League, everything's great, and then a club's gone and replicated our most significant achievement ever. That would be sickening, absolutely sick. I don't care what we do this season. If Man City win the treble, this season is a failure. It's an absolute failure, because it's like when Liverpool won the league last year. These things were never going to happen. When Sir Alex Ferguson was in charge of this club, these things would never have happened. And I don't blame Solskjaer, and I don't blame the players. If it happens, this is 100% on the Glazers. Since Sir Alex Ferguson's retired, Liverpool have managed to win a Premier League, which they never looked like they were ever going to do in my lifetime. And Man City could win a bloody treble. I mean, come on. And they're all in the space of a bloody year. It would be horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I don't care what we win this season. Nothing will make me feel better about Man City winning a treble. That would be disgusting. It would make me want to throw up. But it could happen, and we're reliant on others. We can't stop any of it, can we? You know, we got ourselves knocked out of the FA Cup. They could win a quadruple. I mean, quadruple's better than a treble, Lou. It is, but realistically, I'm not even thinking about the quadruple. It's the treble. That's the one. The Carabao Cup's an irrelevance. It's one of those big three ones. It's the FA Cup, the Premier League, and the Champions League. You can call it a plastic treble if you want, Brendan Stevens. I think it would be a bit of a Poundland treble, because there's no fans in the ground, and you know how you can. But they it's not their fault. If they win it, they win it. They'll celebrate it. It could happen. It could happen. So I'm a big Dortmund fan tonight, definitely. Anyway, look, I'll be back at 1:30 because we've got the press conference reaction with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Thanks everybody for watching. Lots to get talking about anyway around Sancho, Danny Ings, everything. Get your comments in. Please smash a like on the video on your way out, and I will see you at 1:30 for Ollie's press conference reaction. Should be some interesting insights there. Would you spend 70 million on Sancho and give them Ahmed on loan for a year? Ahmed would get game time. He looks like it. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea. Jackson 87. Very correct. Well, I'll tell you what a great way to end the show. It's a very good idea. Get Sancho and give him Diallo. Apparently they liked Diallo, so give him for a year. Good point. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll speak to you in a bit.